So I want to welcome everyone to today's Innovation Awards celebration. It is very much a giant thank you on the part of the Institute for all the participants in this year's Innovation Awards. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate all the creativity, collaboration, and actually also courage for sharing all of your amazing ideas with each other and building teams, very much in the spirit of all the values we have here at the Institute. The Innovation Awards are our internal grants to progress discoveries and inventions here at the Institute towards their ultimate impact, which can include ways to change the way we conduct science, as well as novel therapies for unmet needs. And so what you see here, or what you were seeing, was a scroll through a lot of the different proposals, which will also be on posters outside during the reception. We received 40 proposals, which was many, many more than we were expecting from across.
Not more than everyone was expecting.
More than everyone was expecting.
Except for one.
Except for one, sorry.
Yes.
Except for one. 11 of which were across different science units, which is a really extraordinary testament to all of the conversations you guys have beyond your daily ones about the ambitions you guys have within your own moonshots. The teams encompassed 117 alanites, which for an institute of only 900, 950 is a quite extraordinary number of alanites, and encompassed research associates all the way through the executive directors. 21 of the proposals were progressed to stage 2, and we will talk about the awardees a little bit later in the event today, but I also want to take the moment again to really emphasize it was really the entirety of the cohort that proposed that we're celebrating today, and many, 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 many of the proposals have provided really amazing innovation opportunities, aside from the ones that made it to the next stage. We even, in fact, have a proposal where one of the mentors is actually proposed a partnership off the bat, which we are actively engaged with as well. And we will continue to pursue all of the proposal opportunities, not just the ones that were going to be recognized today. So with that, I'd like to welcome our panel, our president and CEO, Rui Costa, as well as Stefan Irian, the Chief Scientific Officer at Blue Rock Therapeutics, to our panel.
To correspond with
I also want to recognize Inga Komen from Arch Ventures, as well as Hallie Kuhn from Alexandria Ventures, who could not be here today due to some logistics issues
FAA.
regarding our airspace, which is, but they were very much part of the process, and we cannot thank them along with the other 35 mentors, reviewers, and external members of our network, that really contributed to the process as well. So with that, alrighty. So I'd like to start with Rui, and maybe the natural topic for the panel is talking about AI and ML as an accelerator from an innovation perspective, and maybe it's not a surprise at a place like the Allen Institute, where people have been working in machine learning for many, many, many years, that several of the proposals leverage AI and ML in really, really creative ways. Areas like proposals like extracting biosignals from behavioral videos, to proposals to predict cell health before microscopy, and representing analysis results in machine interpretable formats. So Rui, it would be great to hear from you on what some of the opportunities are for AI, not just for foundational biology, but for translation itself as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, it was really exciting to see these groups of awards. It was an experiment. It was an experiment that we think, at least in great part, work, and we want to continue and perfect, because it gave people an opportunity to have ideas that are beyond the moonshots that each of you is engaged in, and the institutes, and and to feel some agency to propose things. And again, 100 and something people together. And one of the areas that came across was AI/ML, but in the way we think, everyone is using AI/ML now in biology. We have been for a while here, and I had been before, and we made a bet of having it embedded rather than separate, like a separate institute that would just do that, etc. And part of it came from the proposals you just said. A lot of it is fully embedded in the experimental work, like which cells are you going to image already, or how are you going to capture the images. So it's not like we had another team of 100 engineers somewhere else that is going to look at this data later and come up with an answer. It's not only about big foundational models, it's about very tangible things that change and accelerate science. Some are of big translation, like, for example, biosignals. This is something we've, even in my team, been looking at many years in terms of, for example, can facial expressions be a determinant of your mental state? Can you do things like even measure heart rate by just, small vibrations in the skin tremors, in Parkinson's, et cetera, but it goes to many more aspects. What I'd like to emphasize is the idea of an accelerator or a transformer of the way we do no pun intended, AI/ML is a transformer of the way we do biology in general and applications in a way that's much more embedded. And the proposals were very much like this. We've very tied to the data, and not like, if we get this data, we're going to do this model over here. And I love that. It feels like the folks get it, and they are all working together in making these options. I think it can be fully transformative in the way we're pushing things here even where the models tells us which data it needs next to learn more.
Oh, yeah.
That's yet another aspect that will accelerate innovation, and even for therapies, discovery, like which new thing should you screen in the next round versus a full, even if you start randomly. So it's a change in paradigm, but what I wanted to emphasize is this embeddedness of the teams that are working in the experiments and the AI/ML folks and tools that are like in the midst of it, from experimental design and hypothesis generation to real acquisition of data, to transformation of data as it's acquired, and to have data that's like AI ready to be machine interpretable or even human interpretable. So that was exciting to see in my views, and of course like many like relatively young scientists like involved.
That was awesome
and
to see.
With great ideas. It's great.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ray, for that. So Stefan, on the theme of AI, the Synthetic Enhancer project proposes a lab-in-the-loop framework. From your perspective in industry, how important is this tight integration between your scientific computing capabilities as well as what's going on in the lab itself and generating data?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, let me start by thanking you all for coming here, and Arden for the invitation to serve on this panel. Arden keeps thanking me for coming here. It's like, this is really fun. Reading 20 proposals that are completely different and harness what the Allen Institute can do was super fun, and then coming out a day to Seattle is even more fun, so thank you for that. And I should remind you all, apparently this is an experiment, and as scientists you should all know experiments have to be repeated at least 3 times, so there goes next year and the year after.
Measures, right?
Yeah.
Measures, Stefan. So you're going to evaluate the current winners at the end of 1 year and the next ones, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
But to your question, which I have not forgotten, I think in the end, a patient doesn't care what your machine learning algorithm told you. They care, does it work for me? Does it help my ailment? So to connect the data that you have for machine learning with experimental validation, with ultimately clinical validation, is important. And I think the sooner you can do that to understand and inform your model, the better it is. I think that it is remarkable what it can do today, AI and machine learning, but I think we haven't built the confidence in saying this will for sure work. I think we've seen in biology is full of surprises when we take something from a computer model into animal models, or from an animal model into humans. We can be surprised what effect we have on the target or on the off target, and it can be detrimental. So until we reach that moment of full confidence, which is probably an infinite quest, I think that model verification is going to be critically important.
Thank you, Stefan, for that. Yeah, maybe related to that, from a clinical development perspective, is that an area that you're also potentially exploring, the use of AI and ML?
Yeah, I mean, so in my team in particular, so we develop cell therapies for degenerative diseases. One of our main assets is in Parkinson's. My computational group's dream is to build this data set that spans all the way from how do we make the iPS cells, how do we make the dopaminergic neurons, how did they perform in all the assays, how did they perform in animal models, to what was the patient outcome, right? Those are obviously incredibly long acquisition timelines. So we're very interested in doing that, and some of the clinical endpoints that we're looking at they're actually remarkably crude. We're asking the patient over the course of a couple of days to report how they're feeling. Now we all have to remember these are typically elderly patients, and to ask them to fill out a notebook for multiple times a day it's not trivial for them. We're asking for them a lot, and it has a lot. So the range of responses, and did they sleep well? Did anything happen to their loved ones or their friend the day before where they filled out that survey? They're very crude. So building AI tools and digital health technologies into endpoints is super important. It's a little bit of a chicken and the egg problem, because a lot of those technologies are being developed, but they're not approvable endpoints yet. So the question for a drug developer like us is, how do we take this forward? Do we spend the effort and energy into developing these endpoints, or do we wait for one of them to be released? And so that's where sometimes consortia can be helpful, because then you share the burden of development. Yeah.
So that sounds like something potentially you guys are thinking about participating in or already doing, is a pre-competitive consortia where potentially you're sharing data maybe in a federated way?
We don't, but as you can imagine, opinions differ in how we do that. It's a stance you can take. I think we're a small biotech company, even though we're owned by Bayer Pharma. There is probably larger groups that are more destined to do that. Personally, the word consortium can be, it doesn't really have the branding of biotech on it, because typically they are long efforts that are really important, but they don't typically get to the result. Like if we were to engage in a consortium on a new digital biomarker today, probably comes too late for us. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. I also did just want to take a moment to mention that actually I first met Stefan a year ago, or just a little less than at the beginning of this year at JP Morgan, the healthcare conference, where Blue Rock was announcing their phase 1 results and the fact that they were actually heading into phase 3 with the first cell therapy against Parkinson's disease. And I think the lead clinical investigator is Lorenz Studer, who many of you may know, out of MSK, and so. So yeah, we cannot thank you guys enough for pioneering, such an important space. So with that, being that open science, is such an important part of what we do here at the Institute. Rui, we want to talk a little bit about the proposals that focused on making science more accessible and how we balance our open science ideals with other kinds of considerations. And maybe if you wouldn't mind taking a moment just to speak about some of the open science proposals, like the OSF HEISS integration, linking our pre-registration with published research as part of our continuing drive on reproducibility, Biofile Finder, and its expansion to new communities beyond bioimaging, and then our real-time metadata capture using AI to actually capture the metadata in real time to enable AI-ready data sets and models.
Yes, so these were a family of proposals that really, I think, more than reflect what our open science philosophy is, they push what our open science philosophy is. So we're always trying to improve, and I would say we're in open science 4.0, but after those proposals, maybe we're ready at 5.0. It's not only about sharing data, text, data sets, the tools to analyze, reproducible certificates, but about the generalizability of many of those tools to other aspects of knowledge. And the other aspect is, we were just discussing these, open science as, oh, I opened the door for you to come into my house. Is that enough? Do you feel that I'm welcoming if I open my door to you? Versus, hey, if the people that need these are over there, and I'd say everyone that needs food could come into my house versus let's rent a truck and drive around. Let's deploy where it's needed. And so some of these proposals were very interesting because, can you use Biofile Finder in libraries, right? And it would impact, the world to be a better place, irrespective of it being health immediately, but can impact knowledge and how people acquire knowledge or how they are educated. The same thing, in terms of metadata, if I forget or don't know or register things in a format, is there a way to automatically capture other things or even to translate different data formats and metadata formats into a common format so that we make use of all the data we have already acquired and are more inclusive. And even the reproducibility certificates and registering to other studies, to go, again, pushing the limits of what open science is. And being open can be everything is available for people. Being open can also mean, even in the common sense of the language, being vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Being inclusive, being flexible to change. And so I think these proposals take that meaning of open science to these other meanings.
Yep.
And it's great to see it when people force you, oh, you mean open science like this. Here's another way you can look at it. And you're like, huh, that's cool. So it's very interesting. I mean, not everyone can win, but every one of these ideas is a win because ideas are deliverables in a way that then can be explored in many different ways. It also is a great way to discuss what we are thinking, many of us, and to put it on paper. It was exciting to see that, to be honest.
That's awesome. So maybe also just on the note of a lot of the proposals, Stefan, that talked about community building. Beyond great science, especially given your position, leading a biotech company's scientific team, what are the things that we can be doing at the Allen Institute in terms of democratizing access to tools and knowledge? So we have a couple of proposals like expanding the synthetic development biology community, creating public leaderboards for biosignal extraction, building educational modules for undergraduate biology. I know these are some areas that, are really important to you personally, but, also from a biotech industry perspective, it would be great to hear your view on those as well.
Yeah, I think places like the Allen have a unique opportunity here to play a role. When we often are burdened by, or you're just doing this because your company and you want to make money, right? So like the way you can set up certain educational programs, also with the durability of something that we may not be able to do in a biotech company because we don't know how our funding frame would look next year, how it's going to be perceived by the public. I think those are unique opportunities if you talk about training. I just saw upstairs the training lab. Pardon, that probably has a different name, but where you teach the teachers and the students. It's amazing. It's so cool. We did something for high school students last week, and we did it in our cafeteria, and we're experimenting with DNA extraction out of strawberries. But we don't have a place like that, right? It's a really unique opportunity, and it's so important that we excite the next generation of scientists for the work we're all doing, we're all passionate about. Of course, especially right now when science is under immense attack here. The other things that you just talked about, open science, creating standards and reference data points in libraries and nomenclature standards and tools that everybody can use. So important because those are things that are harder for us to produce that are not perceived competitive advantages, so we can't share it. You can develop those tools for the greater good and create those norms and understandings for the community. So it's really important work, really exciting.
Thank you for that, Stefan. So moving to translation and impact. Stefan, as a decision maker, or as one of the decision makers at your own company, Blue Rock Therapeutics, it'd be really amazing for this audience to hear. For the proposals that have clear therapeutic ambitions, what are the signals that tell you a discovery stage project has real translational potential? Some good examples from this year's proposals include a modular iPSC-derived immune cell platform for off-the-shelf immunotherapies, a microRNA mini-atlas for cell type-specific tools, validated in epilepsy models, in vivo screening platform to identify drug action mechanisms in a unique and novel way for CNS psychiatric indications. For you, what are the kind of key criteria as you think about what you greenlight from a deal perspective and or a project perspective for your own pipeline?
So I try to approach every project with the patient first. I think I said it in my first answer. Is we really have to center around what does the patient need? What is the unmet need? I think as scientists, we can fall into the trap of finding something that's super exciting scientifically, but it actually doesn't. So I'm not judging it as not important to do, but if it doesn't address an unmet need, it's going to be harder for me as a drug developer to pick that up at that stage, right? That maybe, we've seen great examples of, who would have thought that studying bacterial defense mechanisms would lead to CRISPR and amazing therapies. But when I work in a company, that time horizon is way too long. So I'm focused on something that addresses a clear unmet need for a patient population. And I start to think also about what is that patient population, right? Is it there's some great monogenic diseases that people look at to make a biological proof point, but it turns out there's only, and please don't hear me wrong, that this is obviously important for those few individuals, but it may be very hard to run even a clinical trial because it's such a rare indication. And then I think about, okay, so let's say I have a target, there's an unmet need, I want to go after X, Y, and Z. Now, this group or this individual proposes this approach. Okay, so is this the best modality? Do I force this is this person suggesting a gene therapy when it should be a small molecule or a cell therapy or a biologic, just because that's what they're working in, right? Is there a simpler solution? Is there a simpler mousetrap, right, to the problem? And then, so that's one filter. And then think about, okay, and then does the proposal, does it make sense? Like biologically, am I trying to hit that target, and do I know enough about the target and what it would do if I successfully engage with the target? That the mechanism of action is explainable. I like to think of it rather simple, like, it kind of has to make sense for me. And then, if we're looking at an external asset, the next thing is the team, right? Does the team have the right expertise to do this? And it doesn't mean like you have to have, as long as you're open, you could say like, I'm a really good biologist, I'm a really good whatever, but I know I have a weak spot here, so if I would, this is where we haven't thought it through, or this is where we need to bring expertise in.
Yeah. I know this may be a little bit difficult too, but we often talk about risk. Mm-hmm. So as you, in your current role, but maybe also in previous roles, have thought about risk, and new technologies or novel targets, is there a specific approach that you or Blue Rock have in terms of thinking about scientific risk?
I think what we're doing is extremely risky, right? Everything we have done and developed today is novel. There is no playbook for this, right? And I think that's what excites me. Like I wouldn't be excited about doing something for the 45th time, but it's a personal preference, right? With high risk comes high risk of failure, but also high risk of a potential groundbreaking reward, right? Like, do you want to develop the 5th antibody against the same target, that then you have to clinically demonstrate that it's superior to the existing therapy? Or do I want to develop something that has a true novel mechanism of action that can make a difference? But I think it's very personal. Like in my experience with folks that we have interviewed for certain roles, you can definitely tell like different people are made differently. Some people like the comfort of knowing how to do something, and they're very good at executing against something. So they're probably less risk takers. I would consider myself more of a risk taker.
Thank you, Stefan. And for Rui, the CT Tracks Connectome mapping proposal suggests that their method could create a comprehensive disease atlas, enable targeted therapies, and map cell type specific connections throughout the brain. How do you evaluate whether foundational research, even if not immediately therapeutic, is building the knowledge base that will ultimately change medicine?
So this is an important question, and I think to the core of what we do. And a little bit in terms of risk, let's call it community risk mitigation, right? And the complementarity that we have to academia and industry. So we go after, each of our moonshots is a large project that tries to bring foundational knowledge to that field that is used by other scientists and industry to exponentially change the speed of what we can do. And one of the challenges that we have is, so in a way, we just heard Stefan say, we go after an unmet need. And that's great. And at the Allen Institute, and I'm not going to take credit for it, but trying to imagine, I've never met Paul Allen. The closest was when Honkui and I wanted to get Paul Allen to SFN to actually be celebrated and talk. And of course, Paul didn't want any of that. But so try to imagine not what are the questions we have today, but what questions could we have, for example, about neurodegenerations, where a long-lasting, complete, accurate, permanent data set could make a difference. So, of course we could go, this is what you need today, we'll collect it for you. But we could imagine if you have a question about brain in 10 years, it would still be relevant to come to these data sets. So produce for the questions that exist and the questions that don't exist yet. And in a way, there's risk, but there's less risk because you'd say we would want a foundational data set where all the targets could be, discovered in or tested against. And so some of our rules for is the research foundational are almost symmetrical. Like if a company is already doing, then let's accelerate that. What do they need, or the academic groups? And what is it that people are not saying that they need, but we should collect in an unbiased manner, as rigorous as possible, at scale, because discoveries we know will come from then us when we will have the question, we cannot go back. So I'm going to use a stupid example. Like we're still analyzing stuff, we call them moonshots, that we collected at the moon. What would you collect if you were right there? And you'd be probably as much as you can, right? It's like from everyone would be doing their votes. Please collect these, please collect that. Our projects many times are community built through charrettes. Some of them will be actually in the new version of the Global Brain Observatory, de facto community built and designed. And it's this idea, collect as much as you can with this rigor to get some completeness so that later these can be worked upon. So in a way, I almost have to inhibit my preferred therapy or even classification of disease. When we go now into what's, the brain health accelerator, human brain accelerator, in the beginning, Ed was like, should we start with Alzheimer's or Parkinson's? And I'm like, hey, if we do, at least it should be all degenerative diseases and healthy brain, because some I don't even know how to classify it depending how they'd come. And then what type of data do you collect? Do you collect only connectome, if you can get clinical data from those folks? So I think a lot of it in the foundational data sets has to do with that, where there's a big need in terms of answers, but how can we do it foundational? And then one thing is, if you're talking directly about the Allen Institute, there's a different part in the wow, right?
The
why,
Yep.
why this and why us? Some things, I would agree, yes, this is needed, and yes, now is the right time, but it's not us. We don't have the best expertise, and we have to be humbled that way. Maybe it's another institution like us that would take that upon. But so I feel these foundational research, if it has real impact, and many times we talk, should be used by biotech, by industry to accelerate. I think in Paul's mind was this idea of accelerating, irrespective of if it would be for academia or for industry. We just want to get, faster. Our only risk in that would be if someone would, produce a therapy that costs them a lot per individual, and we'd get like the feedback, hey, like you helped these, but then this company created something that's unaffordable per individual. So that is something I think a lot about, if there are ways to then even mitigate that when we work with different companies to have some safeguard there. But the rest, I think, we need in the world complementary. No one's going to give money to Stefan to say, classify, before you put your therapy in, please tell me all the vulnerabilities and all the types of Parkinson's and comorbidity with other degenerative diseases. But wouldn't you love to have that data with real, cell type vulnerability in human brain, knowing which dopamine subcell types died where, which parts of the striatum, indeed got depleted first, depending on the subtype, so that you'd go, hey, I'm going to image and target, or based on this DAT scan. So this is a lot of what we think and what's here. And some folks here would love to be closer to the therapy, and are always pushing us to go faster. Some folks love the idea of foundational science and understanding and mapping. But as what Stefan meant, we don't even know what will come up of the stuff we discover when it's foundational. We just want it to be as complete, accurate, and permanent as we want. And I think of it as a large trampoline or springboard that can accelerate things. And this idea that it could answer the questions not yet asked. So, and this happens with me every day in my own team. I mean, I go back to the original mouse atlas to look at stuff. And I didn't have this question back in 2011, but I can go back, right? And so it's a different type of game, but very exciting. Can we produce the data sets? I mean, that will answer the questions of the future, the unmet needs now, but can predict some unmet needs in the next 10, 20 years. I think it's exciting.
I want to thank you guys, Rue and Stefan, so much for all the really awesome insights, both in terms of the proposals, but also just on the general themes that we touched on. So with that, thank you both. And we'll get to the rest of the program.
Cool.
Thank you, guys. Oh, yes, I will. That.
AI/ML can still not do very well with fine motor movements. So.
All right, how's that, you guys? I'm a low talker, so bear with. All right. Is that back, maybe one? Okay, actually that one. So I also wanted to take a moment to recognize the 35 mentors, reviewers, and panelists that participated. For us, we wanted to make sure that these rewards reflected all of the amazing expertise that's part of our network. People like Stefan, who are leaders in industry, many senior investors, and also many scientific experts were part of all the external views that provided advice, guidance, reviews, along with recommendations at the end for the awards. So I'd like to recognize the award winners. Establishing optogenetic tools, a proposal about establishing these tools in areas of immunology, looking at neuroimmune interactions. Braxton Jameson, Chanel Suda, Maureen Cowan, and Anna Maria Globig were the team that was part of the proposal. The Pearls team, which was a team that is proposing to develop a first-of-a-kind in vivo platform targeting psychiatric indications, utilizing a lot of their current work, but also, embarking on a course that we are very excited about. So, sorry, Bowen Tan, Tim Wong, Dongwook Kim, Adrian Stanley, and Laura Scaria. Building a whole brain microRNA atlas, very much about establishing an atlas that maps all the microRNA binding sites to enable the next generation of gene therapies. Avery Hunker and Rong Guo. And synthetic cancer AAVs, a proposal proposing to leverage AI to generate novel genetic tools, leveraging our existing enhancer discovery platform. Trygve Bakken, Nelson Johansson, Morgan Worthland, Kasia Kateriska, and Grace Wynn. And next slide. So the panel also wanted to recognize these two proposals. While they didn't fit the criteria of the awards this year, we also wanted to make sure that everyone knew about them in terms of what they bring and how important we think they should be or could be. Real-time metadata capture through AI proposes to use AI to build what is called Gamer, which is an AI real-time tool that will enable AI-ready data sets and models. David Berman, Saskia DeVries, and David Feng. And then representing data analysis results in machine interpretable formats to accelerate scientific decision-making is a proposal to use AI to not only take advantage of all the different kinds of automation AI offers in terms of the many different models for literature search, bracketed against all the different AI models from a data analysis perspective. And really, it's proposing to use AI for hypothesis generation and making possible what we all think is a future we're headed to in terms of agentic scientific AI. So Ashwarya Chander and Abhi Rajagopal. And so with that, again, I also wanted to make sure to emphasize, today's celebration is not just for the awardees and the proposals we have been privileged to recognize, but also really everyone at the Institute who participated in this year's awards and next year's experiment.
Yes. I want to say one last thing, which is to also thank Arden and team, and especially Angela Young. And they took on the initiative of trying to create a seed innovation grant proposal here. It was very exciting to see them work through. And it was very exciting, Stefan, if you remember the format that Angela presented at the end, where people were voting, was in itself a kind of a model.
It was very cool.
A model that captured all the research and the proposals, and where you could actually real-time model. So it wasn't the Excel sheets you saw. And you could, rank, search things in different ways, in ways that are not a traditional software, and it was exciting. So I wanted to thank all of you, but especially this team that put together the Innovation Awards, and we can improve, but this was a great start, and certainly a way we want to continue to engage even more and more. And as Arden said, if your proposal wasn't selected this year, refine it, discuss with people, like if it's your investor, you're still not investing, do you like the idea? Should I shift completely? Or what is the proof of concept? And some were of these types. Some were like, no way. Some were like, if they give me a proof of concept, I would bet on these. So again, thank you, Angela, Arden, and team.
Thank you, Roy. So before you guys go to the reception, one last set of thank yous. So certainly thank you to our panelists. Next, Angela. The many mentors, some of whom are here. And I would definitely make sure you guys get a chance to talk to them, because they are all amazing people and have an incredible amount of expertise. I would also say the same, obviously, for our reviewers as well. These are all individuals who donated their time in supporting all of the different proposals, and our mission here at the Institute. And in addition to the innovation team, Angela, certainly Aaron and Debbie, I also want to make sure to thank everyone across the Institute, from Amity, Lynn, Jim, Ernie, Kate, Luke, Flea, Cher, Maria, Jesse, Stephen, Peter, Gabby, Kelly, Irina, Juan, Kaylee, Gabrielle, Susan, and Jess. Without all of you guys, we could not have made this happen. It was the detail and the ability for all the science units to review and the feasibility and thinking about compute and all the things that it actually takes to execute not only in awards like this, but also eventually the projects themselves. So we want to thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts as well. And the last one is I also want to make a special call out to the science unit leaders. I think as Rui pointed out, allowing your teams to also take into account other opportunities, and obviously the moonshots that we're here for are first and foremost for everyone. But I think our science unit leaders understanding also how important something like this is. I wanted to make sure we got a chance to express all of our appreciation to Hong Kui, Karel, Ernie and the immunology leadership team, Rue, and Jay, as well as obviously all the ops directors. And then the last one is, I also want to thank Rui again. I think we worked on this actually almost from the day I started. We've been thinking about this, and it's a pilot, which means that we will be meeting with every single team, not only about what's ahead for you guys, but also things that we might be able to do differently next year. And then equally, we will also be conducting a very thorough lessons learned. As Stefan and Rui talked about, we are an institution of science, and so we will take this year's data and figure out what we can do better the next time. Thank you guys again, and have an awesome reception.